Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 7 of our wrestling podcast. So without further ado, the following contest is scheduled for one fall, and today's topic, the legacy of the Ultimate Warrior.
Oh my god, you watch wrestling?
Yeah, so?
Ray, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but wrestling is fake.
Yeah, so?
Think about it. If you look really closely, they're not even throwing real punches.
I know. I still like it.
Hey guys! Whoa, you still watch wrestling?
Yes.
Ray, it really breaks my heart to have to be the one to tell you this, but wrestling is fake.
I know.
Like, it's just a bunch of guys running around with no pants on, fighting over a belt.
I know. I don't care. I still find it entertaining. God.
Oh my god, what's all this noise? Ray, you're really watching wrestling?
Yes.
I have some terrible news for you. You know wrestling is fake.
Damn it, I know.
I mean, think about it. The Ultimate Warrior really isn't a warrior. And The Rock isn't really a rock.
No, I know it's fake. I like to see them fight. I like to see the drama. I like the soap opera of it all, and I don't have to justify myself to you.
But it's fake.
Oh, I'll show you how fake it is.
Welcome to the O.W.P. This is our wrestling podcast. This is Dave along with Jess.
Okay.
And Cuz.
Okay.
Bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. And now on to our topic today, the legacy of the Ultimate Warrior. Before we get started, guys, the snort is real. But before we start, as always, you can reach us via Instagram at OWP19, SoundCloud at Our Wrestling Podcast, YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, or you can download WrestlePost. It's an app at no charge to you. You can download that on Apple or Android and join us along with other great podcasts of the day. All right, we got that out of the way, guys, so let's talk about it real quick. The legacy of the Warrior. Any opening remarks before we get into the man that is Mr. Hellwig?
Go ahead, Cuz. I know you want to.
Oh,
No,
I mean, what can you say? Greatest of all time? Better than Hogan? No, just kidding.
I hope you have an hour's worth to say. What can you say? All right, well, bye, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye-bye.
Greatest of all time. Greatest face paint in wrestling. The end. No, I mean, he's the,
maybe.
I would actually say that. Yeah, greatest face paint in wrestling. I would say most iconic for sure.
You'll never forget it.
Exactly. The guy that got me into pro wrestling. It's funny because I was actually thinking it over about how I got into him, and I couldn't remember. All I remember, like I said in episode 1, was going to your house, Jess, and watching him run down. Like, I only remember that. I know it wasn't WrestleMania, but I want to say you may have been watching Wrestling Challenge, but I can't remember because I think it was 1989. I think it was the year before we moved out to Lake Elsinore, because I remember vividly as far as in Lake Elsinore, when I moved out there and you came over, and you knew already that the Warrior was my favorite. After the first time I went to your house and saw wrestling on TV, the first thing, like I said in episode 1 of our podcast, was the thing that I remember was Ultimate Warrior running down to the ring. I don't remember exactly after that. I just remember him running down to the ring, shaking the ropes, getting into the ring. And I remember being really fascinated with the Ultimate Warrior. He just drew you in. He had the charisma, the face paint. He had the action figure body. And he could draw you in, regardless if you're a wrestling fan or not. I can see that now, in hindsight, looking back, that even if I wasn't a wrestling fan, I'd be like, that guy's got my attention right now. His music's badass. I mean, I remember being in high school, this guy walking around, totally looked like some kid from the 80s, but it wasn't the 80s. It was in 2000s, early 2000s. A guy with a muscle shirt on, gym shorts, walking around with a big ass boombox on his shoulder, blasting the Ultimate Warrior theme song in high school, just outside on the campus. But what I remember as far as really finding out who the Warrior was when you brought over WrestleMania 4 and he fought Hercules. And I remember I remember specifically, like as a kid, asking, "Does he win?" And you're like, "Oh, just find out." And then, of course he won. But, as far as what got me into wrestling, that's who drew me. Also the Macho Man. I can say the Macho Man, and I could say Hulk Hogan too, because that's who, those were the three main guys that were on TV as far as wrestling goes.
Yeah, so, in your childhood for sure, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I remember all three of those guys, but the Warrior is the guy that got me in there. Or he's the guy that that got me drawn into wrestling. Yeah, and that's what made me a fan ever since. So obviously we're going to go on and on about it, but
sure,
I have to open up.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about Hercules. We're going to get into that. I think there's some great visuals there. We'll talk about that. Jess, anything you want to add before we get into that bio?
I was on the opposite side of the Warrior fence because I was such a massive Hulk Hogan fan. When he was coming up, I was fine with him. Again, he was another one of Vince's cartoon characters, and what better cartoon character than a guy with face paint and shakes the ropes and runs down to the ring, doesn't walk, runs. His music right away was, probably like caught everybody's attention, just got everybody like bobbing their head. It was just such a very iconic tune, still is to this day. I don't know what was wrong with the guy that was listening in the boombox outside of Cuz's high school, but whatever. I mean, whatever.
He knew talent when he saw it. That's what.
Yeah, just sure. Like Brock Lesnar listening to the Briefcase the other day.
I still find that hilarious, bro.
He was playing the Ultimate Warrior theme song.
Yeah, I was gonna say somebody should splice the Warriors theme song into that. But
they already.
So I didn't have a problem with them, and I when he won his first Intercontinental Championship, I thought again like it. He fit Vince's programming. It worked perfect. He was a larger than life character.
Sure.
I think it was everything that Vince wanted, really, when you look at it, when you looked for someone. And but I was a Hulk Hogan guy. So of course, when Warrior won the title, which we'll also get into, and defeated Hulk Hogan, I was very anti-Warrior. Again, I knew at that point, I think I was in, I want to say it was in 8th grade when the Warrior beat Hogan. So I knew wrestling was fake, but we still really played like it was real, and I fought with Joe and Craig and Dave all the time about our favorites and everything. It was just we got super into it because like there was no internet, we didn't get any dirt sheets or anything like that. We just read like kayfabe magazines like Pro Wrestling Illustrated and The Wrestler and stuff like that. So we kind of kept apprised of behind the scenes stuff, even though we learned later that was all kayfabe as well. But it was just more of a you lose yourself, and so the Warrior was a massive part of that. And whether I liked him or not, and it didn't matter. People responded to the Ultimate Warrior, and here we go into the legacy of the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, before we get started, they already spliced at least Brass Monkey into that Gato box track.
I've seen that.
It's for Brock Lesnar. And if you haven't seen that, guys, just find any social media account. You'll find it right away. It's perfect. That's all I got to say. It's absolutely perfect.
Brock Lesnar, baby.
Yeah. How about Brock holding like a boombox? Good for him.
Fucking great.
Doing something different.
Reinventing himself. God damn it. No, just kidding.
God damn it.
Having a good time with his millions upon millions of dollars.
He's just as versatile as Jericho, reinventing himself. No,
just as versatile. All he had to do was get a spray tan and then boombox. He's good to go. There you go. All right, baby. Goddamn. Go ahead. Say something stupid. All right. So the Warrior, we have Jim Hellwig. I kind of put this in here because it was very interesting in the beginning of his bio. Jim Hellwig lived to be 54 years old, and the men in his family only seem to live in their 50s. So it seems to be a lot of genetic stuff going on there, where he was able to not live as long as the majority of people out there. He started out as a professional bodybuilder with aspirations.
I'm sure pumping himself full of God knows what shit didn't help you.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess his dad and grandfather.
Even though he was widely regarded as like a very healthy eater, like no kidding.
Yeah.
There's stories of him when, Vince would have catering behind the scenes of whatever, whether it was TV tapings or whatever. And Warrior would, eat super clean. And then he would go over to, I don't remember who told the story, but he would grab a chocolate chip cookie and from the dessert tray and pick it up and crumble it in his hands and like sniff it and just take it in that way. And he would tell people that that's how I taste it because it's bad for me. I don't want any of that processed sugar or shit in my body. And then he would just throw in the trash can after he crumbled.
No way.
Yeah, he would seriously sniff it.
Hardcore on that.
To get like a taste of it or like a sniff of it in, but he would never eat it. Like that's what that was his treat.
That's amazing.
That's why he was snorting all the time. He had some fucking crumbs of cookie stuck in his nose.
I got stuck. Nose infection.
With some Coke.
It's kind of funny because he started out as a professional bodybuilder. That's not the funny part, but he had aspirations to be a chiropractor of all people. Yep. If you saw the Warrior coming in to adjust you, would you just be scared to death?
Like, probably break everyone's neck.
He's like, son of a bitch. Let's go. He actually, as a bodybuilder, he was in Georgia. He actually won the 1984 NPC Mr. Georgia Crown for bodybuilding. And he continued to work out, obviously, trying to get on that major circuit. And about a year later, he kind of let that go because he was asked to join in with another set of bodybuilders to form, they called it a wrestling team. I don't know if you want to call it a wrestling faction, but they call it a team, I guess. And that's where he met Steve Borden, better known as who?
Sting,
yeah. Yep, that's it. They actually wrestled under the CWA with a good friend of some podcasts out there, Mr. Jerry Jarrett, right? Little out there, dad of Jeff Jarrett, and they wrestled as the Freedom Fighters to start. They were total baby faces at first until they ran into the likes of the Rock and Roll Express and the Fabulous Ones, and that actually obviously turns them into a heel team if you're going to face those guys. So. They moved on to Mid-South. They became the Blade Runners, which I think is one of the coolest tag team names ever.
I like that name.
I wish it would have lasted longer until he obviously bailed on that. He, it's kind of interesting because Road Warrior Hawk said this was a foil of the Road Warriors when you call the Blade Runners. But, and then we get into the whole warrior conversation and how many warriors are out there, right? But he kind of bails. He does bail on Mid-South, and he moves on to WCCW, and he takes on the name of the Dingo Warrior. He was doing mostly heel work until he started working with their champion. Does anybody know who their champion was? Pop quiz.
No, you surprised me with this one.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Think you know it, Cuz?
No.
It's someone he's wrestled numerous times.
I said one of the Von Erichs, but
it wasn't Von Erich, right?
Pretty much common at that time.
Sorry.
No, can't remember.
It was actually Rick Rude, of all people. Rick Rude, bro. Pretty crazy, right? So yeah, he must have been their champion that everybody chased because he was definitely he was a major heel there. And he was actually not him, but the Dingo Warrior was managed by Percy Pringle, better known as another pop quiz. Who was that? You guys know that one? Super easy.
Yes. Suck my fat cock.
Yeah, that's right, Mr. Paul Bear. There you go.
Coincidentally, Memphis, Tennessee.
And speaking of the tag titles, he actually won. I'm sorry. Speaking of the Von Erichs, he actually won the tag titles with Lance Von Erich, and later beat Bob Bradley for their heavyweight title. It's kind of interesting because after he wins that title, just a few months later, he vacates it, leaves, comes back, leaves again. The question is, what the F, and where did he go? And you guys know where he went at this point? It's on to the big dance. He's on to the WWF.
To Florida Championship Wrestling.
No, you wish.
All right.
Yeah.
You talking about him going to the WWE? Can't say WWF no more, guys.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, when they pay me the big bucks, I'll fucking not say that.
I know.
Until then, I'm going to say WWF.
You want to fork over some
WWF.
Cabbage. Yeah. So, and that's where WWF comes into play. And it comes up in conversation. Hey, Mr. Warrior, whatever you want to call yourself. Listen, pal, there's a ton of warriors out there.
What the hell's a Dingo Warrior?
What is a Dingo Warrior?
Besides the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. What's a Dingo Warrior?
Yeah, it's so stupid.
That's where, if you want to do Vince McMahon Googling on throwback, that would be the question. What the hell is a Dingo Warrior? No, probably nobody would get that now.
What is a dingo?
It's kind of, I know this is probably just stupid for me to say, but it kind of, that's like the difference between what Vince was doing and what other people were doing. Nobody stopped him and said, the Dingo Warrior doesn't even roll off the tongue. It sounds dumb. But you get to WWF, and right away, the greatest promoter of all time is like, can we fucking shelf that shit? Like, what the fuck is a Dingo Warrior? Like, basically, it's like, come on. I mean, that's the basic difference from everybody else in Vince.
Wasn't there? Do you remember a story? Because I know if you just look up his biography or whatever, it says something like he the reason he called himself a Dingo Warrior. Like, they don't have much of an explanation, like, if you look online right now. But I could have sworn there was a story of someone saying why the dingo came into play. Do you know, Jess? Do you remember?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I know there was a story I heard a long time ago.
Just in general, just the sound of it, like Dingo Warrior, even if it's the best memory ever. Like, my father passed away and he used to call me his little dingo. Like, I mean, even if it's that touching, which I'm just making that story up. Like, a Dingo Warrior sounds absolutely stupid.
Doesn't it make sense that,
ladies and gentlemen, the Dingo Warrior? Like, it's just, like,
it is.
Yeah. Well, and this is where it comes in. Like they said, hey, there's the Road Warriors out there. There's the modern day warrior, Carry on Eric. There's a lot of warriors out there. So what are you going to do? And it's speculation as to who comes up with the term ultimate. But Hellwig claims that fame to himself, obviously, to call himself, well, I'm the ultimate warrior, and that's it. And the
I can. You got it. You nailed it right on the head.
God damn it.
I actually wouldn't be surprised though if he was that, into himself that much to where he said that though. So I wouldn't put it past him.
He might have. He might have.
It's kind of a good idea. It's a good name.
Yeah,
it's very
that you passed right.
But anyways, he gets a.
You're going to be. I'm going to be the fucking ultimate employee. You're hired. Damn.
the ultimate. You know what? My next job interview. That's what I'm going to say. So what puts you above everybody else? Well, I'm going to be the ultimate employee.
I'm going to be the ultimate employee, and then you're fucking hired.
And just snort fucking coke off the desk.
Hey, let me show you the fryer over here, and here's how we assemble hamburgers.
I'm the ultimate fryer.
So big thing
all right.
So real quick, I'm going to touch on this because it's
sure.
This is going to fucking drag forever. There's a legend of a gentleman named Tom McGee. And it's on the network, but it was a legend long before that. That was this guy who was a very accomplished athlete. Long story short, and he had a great look, and he was muscular. And Vince McMahon, as early as 1986, was looking to replace Hulk because Vince McMahon, I have a fucking vision, and we're going further in the future. And so he wanted Hulk after Hulk petered out whenever that in 86 Hulk Hogan was fucking like white hot, like he was the fucking biggest wrestler in the world in 1986, the world. And Vince was still like, I want to find someone else, I'm finding your fucking replacement, whatever that is, you fuck you. Like he was just always like after. So he actually found this guy named Tom McGee that people turned him on to because he wrestled up in Canada.
Powerlifter.
And long story short, that was the slot that the Warrior ended up getting because Tom McGee ended up being a sack of shit in the ring, even though he was an amazing athlete. Again, go on the network and see the tryout match that he had with Bret Hart.
Yep.
And Bret Hart made it look like $1 million because Bret Hart's a really talented wrestler.
Amazing.
And so Vince was like, and Vince was heard walking around gorilla position going, this is my next champion. Because it always bothered Vince, and this sounds funny, but it's a fact. It always bothered Vince that Hulk was balding. So he loved everything about Hulk. But he fucking hated it. He hated that Hulk. He would always tell Hulk, like, when he was like trying to keep Hulk in check, if Hulk got a big head or whatever, was walking around the locker room all swole, like his shit didn't stink. Vince would always be like, Terry, put your bandana on. Like, I don't want to see that on interviews. I want a bandana. Like, that's why Hulk started wearing a bandana in like 89, 90, 91, because Vince was writing his ass for years. Like, cover your bald spot. It's the truth. It's the way Vince would always, like, when you have a manager that always kind of tries to keep you in check, that's the way Vince wanted to kind of bully Hulk. It's like Hulk was fucking Hulk, so he had a presence wherever he went. So Vince would always keep him in check. So Vince was legitly saying out loud to Hulk, I'm going to find your replacement. He would always say that to Hulk. And Hulk even wrote this in his book, and Hulk lies a lot. But I believe that because you hear other stories about, Vince would go around always trying to look for Hulk's replacement because he knew that Hulk would eventually die out. Everything dies out. Every fad comes, peaks, and then falls down. So this guy named Tom McGee was the next guy. Vince found out quickly that Tom McGee wasn't going to be that guy. So when they signed the Warrior in 87, the Warrior slid into that spot. That's a true story.
Yeah. It's Tom McGee is one of those missing pieces, right?
He was almost the ultimate Tom McGee.
Yeah, they could have been.
He was a power lifter, right, or something like that.
Before it's the Dingo Tom McGee, and then
it was the ultimate McGee. That's what it was.
Oh.
That's right. Now, so anyway, and to that point, he gets a push right away, all the way to Wrestling Challenge. This is what Cuz was talking about, all the way to Hercules, or you can call him Hercules Hernandez. Hercules was quite a specimen himself. He was a good 260, 280, somewhere in there. And
I find it interesting. Well, this is how Vince is super confident in his product. Vince has always been about big guys. To put those two people together is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of.
It does make no sense.
When either one of them work in the ring. Warrior was incredibly green at this point, and Hercules, I don't know if it was very good. I mean, Hercules was a veteran after a while. Obviously, everybody becomes a veteran if they're in it long enough. But I mean, and I'm not trying to shit on Hercules at all. But he just was a brawler. He didn't really have any super, talent, and didn't really have like great flowing matches or whatever. But he was Hercules, and he had Heenan with him as a mouthpiece. And
he had a great look.
I think Vince thought, I want to, show the Warrior strength off. They did the whole thing where Warrior broke out of Hercules as like full Nelson and stuff, and blah blah blah. And so that's what they wanted to do. So confident Vince was back then. It wasn't about good matches back in the day for Vince, despite how long the Wrestling Observer has been around or whatever. And the good matches are all that matters. And that's at the time, that's what the NWA was really trying to focus on, is good in-ring product. Which
it was different.
I love that, but at the same time, Vince was all about like character development. It was appreciated, but it didn't work. It's not going to work.
It worked. It worked. It was quite a spectacle, right? About Hercules, and so what I wanted to make sure we got in on this one was there's actually a point here where Warrior grabs a hold of Hercules' chain, and the strength of the two, actually by obviously gimmicked up, breaks the chain, which is kind of a cool visual.
It's real.
That may not be a smart maneuver on the part of Hercules Hernandez. Ultimate Warrior back on his feet. Yanks. Oh my goodness! Can you believe that? The Warrior yanked that chain so hard, he broke it in two.
And talk about break of the chain. A huge break for Warrior, even more. Just getting a tremendous push. And this is not really a break. I'm pretty positive we talked about this. This is fairly planned out. They say Brutus Beefcake was injured before his IC title run.
Well, real quick, just to go back, not to cut you off, but no, his first notable match for WWF was WrestleMania 4, and he did defeat Hercules, but he wasn't part of the tournament. But he did defeat Hercules in that match, and it was one of those finishes where it was I think Hercules suplexed, belly to back suplexed him, and then right before both pin shoulders were down, right before the 3 count, Warrior lifted his shoulder and won. So it was really just a way to show that they're both so strong, anybody could win, and Warrior came out on top. And it was just really a feud to put Warrior in the public, and they threw it on the pay-per-view. I mean, that's, again, Vince was pushing him from the beginning. To get a WrestleMania match like that young in your career is pretty important.
Well, WrestleMania match, and then not too far after, you're looking at a title run, which is what we're talking about at SummerSlam. And we all knew. I'm pretty sure we were pretty confident that Brutus wasn't injured to that point or that extent. It was just all part of the kayfabe moment, right? Well, Brutus is injured. Who's coming out? What's going to happen?
Well, we found out about that now, but I mean, I don't know. The way they played it on TV, Outlaw Ron Bass jumped. It was supposed to be Brutus Beefcake against Honky for the IC title, because those two fought at WrestleMania 4 in a boring match. So they were going to rematch, and rumor has it that Beefcake was supposed to win the IC title. Yeah. But the way they filmed it was on Superstars of Wrestling a couple of weeks before SummerSlam. Outlaw Ron Bass came out and attacked Beefcake and took his spurs from his boots and raked him across Beefcake's face. And they did this thing where Beefcake bladed, but they put the big X, the censored sign over it to make it a little bit more like, this is really brutal. And so they announced pretty much after that Beefcake was injured from that, so he cannot face Honky at SummerSlam. And Honky will face an unknown opponent at SummerSlam. So, there was two things. It was one, Beefcake was injured in real life and had to go away for surgery or go away for rehab or whatever they had him do, and that's why they did it. Or I found out recently, listening to one of the podcasts that Bruce Pritchard and Conrad do. What happened when? What happened? Something to Wrestle With. And they talked about it, and Pritchard said from the start that actually Vince just changed his mind. He really decided at that point, I really want to put the rocket on the Warrior, and we'll stage something to keep Beefcake hot and keep him in a feud with Ron Bass after. So I could do either or. I could have Brutus beat Honky Tonk Man and then feud with Beefcake or feud with Ron Bass afterwards, or that could take Beefcake out of the picture and I can insert the Warrior. we find out from Bruce, if you believe Bruce, that that's actually what happened. That Beefcake was not really injured in real life.
Yeah.
It was just more of a storyline where Vince wanted an out. I'm sampling the Warrior, and I really want, Beefcake's over. Who do I want? And then Vince at the last minute went with the Warrior, so they did the whole, Beefcake can't wrestle and Warrior gets put in.
Yeah, and it's quite a statement that Honky makes. Just bring anybody. I don't care who it is.
What's he doing before? Oh, what is he doing with the spur, man?
That the Outlaw not one to let things go when someone has stepped in his path. And right now doing some damage on Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Basically, Honky's out there saying, just bring anybody. I don't care who it is. And it gets a little quiet, and then all of a sudden the Warriors music hits, and the crowd just goes bananas. I mean, they are so into this son of a bitch at this point.
Why?
Because he looks like a kid's bicycle. That's why he runs down and he has a good time.
He runs down, right. He beats Honky in 30 seconds and ends the longest reigning to this day. The longest reigning Intercontinental Championship run.
That's why you understand how big this push was, because not only did he beat Honky in record time. I mean, it's probably been broken since an IC title change, but I don't know, 27 seconds. It may not be. But what definitely has not been broken at this point was Honky's run. How many days was it, Jess?
454.
I don't remember the days, to be honest. I know it was pretty close to a year and a half.
Yeah, it's like a year and a half, and we know we're pretty confident in our opinion of wrestling and what we see today. It'll never be broken.
For a heel in WWF to be champion that long is actually kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Felt like they could have done it with the Miz, but different topic, different day.
Well, they tried to. It's weird.
Yeah,
they tried to. He
was capable, I think.
Yeah,
but go ahead. Yeah, so, it's 454 days for Honky.
454 days. There it is. So I don't believe it'll ever be broken. I would be super surprised if it did.
Yeah, at this point, no.
So.
Well, when they said they wanted the greatest of all time, they said, give us the honky-tonk man and Colonel Jimmy Hart. You better believe it. I'm the greatest of all time, and standing beside me, the greatest manager of all time. Jimmy, you tell them what you've done for me. Go on, Colonel.
Well, Honky, we've done everything together in the whole world. When it comes to hitting records, this man has got millions of hits. When it comes to wrestling, this man is the greatest. When it comes to guitar playing, singing, and dancing, he is number one, baby. I guess you can probably say honky-tonk's the greatest of all time.
The Warrior, Lord. I mean, the Gorilla Monsoon. They're going to take over, man. That's what you do when you want something. You go out and get it, baby.
Ultimate Warrior exploding here on the Honky Tonk Man. Beautiful flying tackle. The bell is gone and it's officially underway.
Warrior doesn't know what to do. He's so excited.
The title definitely up for grabs here.
Oh, we could get a new champion right now, Gorilla Monsoon. Right now, brother, we could get a new champion. I'm here to tell you.
Flash hooks the leg.
That's it.
History has been made here.
Goodness. I love it. I love it.
Look at this place go bananas.
Pandemonium is right by.
Once we get into this in this IC title run, I mean, Warrior does face a few people here and there, but it really gets hot and heavy when he's getting back to Rude, who he wrestled before in WCCW, right? They know each other very well. They wrestle house shows all over, and eventually at WrestleMania 5, Rude gets that heel win. Do you guys remember how that happened?
Yeah. Yes, Bobby Heenan grabbed his leg.
Held him down.
But the ultimate heel pin. Yeah,
this is awesome. But this is an important lesson for everybody.
Yes.
For what went wrong with Goldberg, for what goes wrong with undefeated streaks. First of all, they never bragged that the Warrior was never pinned. The Warrior was undefeated from the second that he got in there.
Yeah.
All the way up until Rude beat him. I don't even think the Warrior lost by DQ or count out on house shows. I think he won every time.
I think Andre beat him once in Italy or something. Something really? out of the country. Yeah, but I don't think it wasn't televised or anything. But
it was after the IC title run, right?
Yeah, I'd have to go back. I
really believe that he was undefeated. So first of all, there's two rules. One, you don't fucking need to talk about an undefeated streak, because when you start bragging or booking someone around an undefeated streak, you eventually have to beat them. And what do you do at that point when you hype? It's like when you talk about something. Don't draw attention to it if you don't want it to be a big deal. So they never did that, but the Warrior was pretty much undefeated up until he lost to Rude at WrestleMania 5. And then that loss is important. So he didn't lose clean at all. It was total cheating on Rude Heenan's part, but that was what this is when Vince had his fucking marbles about him, and he understood, like, I have to test this guy. Not only everyone loved him being IC champion, that's great, that was over, but at the same time, like, I want to see what happens when he loses. Do the fans just take shit and walk away, or do they really want him to win it back again? And, I know, Dave, you're going to march on with the story, but we all know what happens, but, like, this is so important to, like, the way Goldberg was booked and the way other people with undefeated streaks, like Ryback or anybody else you want to put in there, undefeated streaks. It's just fucking. Who?
I said Oscar.
Yeah, Oscar too. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. Like, they just, if you hype it up like that, and someone, you shouldn't hype up an undefeated streak, but if you do, even if they hyped up the Warrior, he's undefeated. Let's say they did that, right? This loss would not fucking cost him a thing, because what they did was afterwards they still kept him strong, and the plan was he's going to beat Rude back. Like, that's just what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's just it's the follow up and it's the execution. It really is.
The suplex from the outside. Look at Heenan. Grabs the leg of the Warrior. He's holding on. He did it. He did it. I called it, Macho.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I said they don't
the winner of this bout and new Intercontinental Champion, ravishing Rick Rude.
Going back, and this was in 1988. Andre did pin him clean in Italy. It doesn't specify if it was televised or not. And then he lost heel tactics to Dino Bravo in Montreal same year by Dino Bravo putting his feet on the ropes for leverage.
And that all makes sense because that's, Andre's not exactly from Italy, but it's close. So it's a hometown thing.
Andre was undefeated and never slammed until Hulk did at WrestleMania 3. Is true or false?
No.
Ooh.
Well, he got slammed. He got slammed before that, for sure.
He's been slammed before.
I'm saying.
Okay, yeah.
He was slammed before. Hulk slammed.
Yeah,
Hulk slammed Shea Stadium after the match.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, Andre had been beaten and been slammed before Mania 3, but that's what I'm saying. Like, undefeated streaks are manufactured anyway.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. It's like, who cares?
He never won the number of matches they said he won. They inflated that. And, so I mean, like, it just depends on what time frame it all was.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're right, but I mean, like, they could have easily went on WWF television. Warrior never lost ever.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're right.
Like, so
you didn't have the luxury of the internet then.
It's like, this lesson needs to be like, you first of all, you should never really hype an undefeated streak, but if you do, like, the way the Warrior lost made total sense.
Yeah.
Like, it made complete sense.
Heel tactics.
Yeah, exactly.
And he wins the title back at SummerSlam 89 from Rick Rude. Piper comes down and kind of distracts Rick Rude and sets up a Piper and Rude feud.
Oh, yeah.
But that match was so much better than the WrestleMania 5 match. If you ever watched the uncut version of WrestleMania 5, I'm sorry, I'm going to be honest, Warrior flubbed all over the place.
Oh, of course
he does. But the SummerSlam 89 match was so much better and so much more well thought out and everything. I recommend that people go and watch that SummerSlam 89 match with him and Rick Rude. It's actually a really good match.
Drops him down! The Warrior! Rolls it over! Yes! Let's get the official word!
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of this bout.
I think that Rude, because of those matches and because of what he's done, not only with Warrior but with Self, this is so, talk about underrated. I mean, we all know he's good.
It was a test for both. It was a test for the Warrior, and it was a test for the Warrior's character and how that would play out on TV, and it was a test for Rude because the heels were the workers really in WWF.
That's how it works. Yeah.
He really wanted to test Rude out.
And Rude, God, could just go. That boy could work, man, all the way up to the end.
Both matches with the Warrior were some of Rude's best work as a heel, and especially the rematch in SummerSlam 89.
He made the Warrior look amazing. I mean, he did, without a doubt.
That's the job. That's why when these fans today are like, "Oh, Rude should have been like 5-time WWF champion,"
not really.
Like,
no.
You know what? The problem is that everybody that people like, they want to be champion, and you can't have that. You have to have these role players that just understand that I'm probably never going to win that many titles in my life. Like, but I'm going to get in there and do my fucking job, and I'm going to bump and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to put these faces over. It's not a time to have a face that is not as talented as the heel. Heaven forbid, I mean, or I don't even want to use the word talent because that's really subjective, but or as technically sound as the heel. The heel should be more technically sound because the babyface just needs to have that fiery comeback and get the crowd going. But the heel really is in control the entire time. He bumps hard. He does what he feeds into the heel. He feeds himself to the heel and the heel's big spots and all that stuff. Or the face, sorry. The heel feeds himself to the face's big spots and all that stuff. That's just what the heel's job is. So, no. Rick Rude should not have been world champion. How about that?
That's what he gets. That's what he got paid for.
Never been champion. No, there you go. No, just learn that people today, and the reason why wrestling is just so far fucking off the mark is because people don't understand that people should play certain roles, and that's their job. Jake the Snake never won one title in WWF.
One of the greatest ever, by the way.
And it didn't need to. That's point is you hold your value or your titles when you don't have everybody. Now fucking Rey Mysterio's been a world champion
5,000 times.
All right.
Fucking Finn Balor, world champion. Fucking put it on him, Dave. The crowd likes him, Dave, this week. Let's put it on him.
We're still talking about the Warrior, right?
Yep. The Warrior. I put it on dig his casket up and put it on his casket.
Oh God.
Do it. Have the Undertaker resurrect him.
Yep.
Oh, there you go. That works perfect.
So, briefly before we get into the push of all pushes, right? Warrior gets that title back from Feud, SummerSlam. Yeah. I don't know if you're snorting or snoring at this point. But then he goes into almost like I don't want to say a year, but got a long feud with Andre. He squashed Andre all over the country. Some matches ending in less than a minute. He would just shoulder block Andre and close on him until he
this. And I mean, Vince obviously was testing him.
Well, I know why they did it.
There was a lot of times where they had a match on Saturday Night's Main Event that was obviously longer than 30 seconds, but I think Andre lost by DQ or something like that. I can't remember. But no, in Madison Square Garden house show, I think was the first time I actually on my big massive fucking satellite dish. I got house shows from Madison Square Garden. We got the satellite dish. I want to say sometime in '89. And they actually showed a Madison Square Garden card where the Warrior pinned him in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Andre got introduced. He came out there. Warrior comes out.
That was happening all over the country.
With this music still on and the belt still on. Bouncing off ropes. Clotheslines Heenan out of the ring and pins Andre with a splash in 30 seconds. And the place goes nuts and all that stuff.
It was literally squash matches all over the country.
It was just designed to get people to go to house shows and see the Warrior and Andre. That's really what it was for.
Yeah. And Andre, Andre couldn't work. That was the best Andre could do. And that's great because it's just another big push for the Warrior at the end of the day.
What's the great story of that, Jess, when Andre and Warrior were working? I think it was probably before this, right?
He didn't talk about it. It was Warrior would bounce off the ropes. And Warrior's thing was he clotheslined people all the time. And so he had a spot where, a lot of people did this spot with Andre because Andre was a giant, so you couldn't knock him down easy. So he would run up to Andre and clothesline Andre, and Andre would stagger like he's going to fall, but he wouldn't fall. And then Warrior bounced off the ropes again, hit him with another clothesline, same thing. So I guess a couple house shows in a row, Andre was just like, you're stiffing me. You're hitting me really hard, Warrior. Stop doing that. And Warrior, okay, no problem. Warrior went out the next night. Fucking clothesline him really hard. Andre's like, I'm telling you, stop stiffing me, stop hitting me hard with that clothesline. And then Warrior's like, yeah, no problem, boss, no problem. And then Warrior went out there again, and then I guess Andre knew it was coming and stuck his fist out. So when Warrior went to clothesline him, Warrior ran right into Andre's fist and knocked himself kind of out in the ring. And Andre had to did the choke and pulled him in the corner and pretended like he was working the Warrior, but the Warrior was legitly out on his feet. And he said afterward, Bobby Heenan said the next night, Warrior would walk up to the clothesline, pink like a feather, hit him and learned. So Andre kind of taught him
as Andre probably would have said.
Andre at all. Don't do that. What did you say? Bobby down. Okay.
Yeah, that's probably Warrior didn't understand what he said. He's like, Warrior. He's like, hit you harder. Okay.
It took 3 nights for the Warrior to be like, oh, he's telling me to not hit him so hard. I get it.
No baby oil, get out.
He has 8 bottles of wine before we went out there, so I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
There you go. So, they obviously ended that feud at Survivor Series where Warrior's team takes care of Andre's team.
Yeah, on TV, they never really hyped Warrior and Andre that much. Like I said, there was such a gap between SummerSlam and Survivor Series and all that stuff. They did some Saturday Night's Main Event.
Purely house show funds, bro. They're just making money.
It was all just house show stuff.
Sure, they're just making
it was like Groom the Warrior, and you know, you get him in there with Andre, and you get the rub from Andre. It's kind of a big deal, and you just get kind of slow down and learn pacing, I think.
Yeah. So once we get into that, we get into the WWF title run. Excuse me. And we already know at this point because of
let's just skip ahead to WrestleMania 7 against Macho Man Randy.
Stop. We got to talk about brother. So we already know that Vince was always looking for the replacement of Hogan, and Jess really talked about that in great detail. So, you know, there's a reason for it, and then we build this up. It's not in my notes, but I should have had it in my notes. There's a great, phenomenal face-to-face meet in the Royal Rumble.
Include the Royal Rumble face-off in your notes.
I know. I'm like, how is it not here? And it came up, and I'm like, how is it?
Turn the mics off.
We're fucking done. It's over.
That's what builds up to the goddamn. Okay.
Anywho, yeah. So eventually, if you always felt like these guys were going to face off eventually. Like, what would happen if Hogan and Warrior faced off? And eventually, it actually happens.
This is a bunch of bullshit, and I'll tell you why. Because I had, like I said, I was talking about my big ass satellite dish. So we were going to get a fucking pay-per-view at my fucking house. And so my mom and dad said, yes, you can get Royal Rumble 1990. And I was like, fuck yeah. So I was fucking so excited to finally get my first pay-per-view ever because our satellite dish was allowing it. And something happened with, I can't remember, my mom and dad sent a payment off. They paid it every month, but now you pay shit and it's fucking instantaneous, right?
Jesus.
But I think the way the satellite companies worked back then, like even when you mailed a payment or sent a payment and they got it right away, it took like fucking 14 days to process or some stupid shit. So I did not know this, that they wouldn't cut your service, but if you went to order something extra like a pay-per-view, they wouldn't grant it to you because, they hadn't got your payment or processed it yet. So my mom and dad were on time paying the bill, but they paid it like 7 days before, and it takes 14 days to process, something stupid. So we go to get it that day and fucking declined. So I never ended up – my first wrestling pay-per-view ever ended up being WrestleMania 6, but it was supposed to be Royal Rumble 1990, which I would have goddamn saw the fucking face-off with Hogan and Warrior, and I didn't see it because
that does
fucking
suck, man.
The satellite.
Shawn Michaels eliminated by the Warrior, and Rick Martel eliminated by the Warrior. And look at this! Look at this!
My God!
Hulk Hogan and the Warrior.
There is not a person sitting down. Everyone on his feet. Look at the eyes of the Hulkster.
How fitting the first pay-per-view you saw, though. Hogan and Warrior.
That was fitting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Baby!
That's
face
not
off.
fitting.
They did it so well.
Yeah.
Again, less is more. They fucking just circled each other. The fucking crowd was on their feet. They were in Orlando, Florida for that Royal Rumble.
They really just ran the ropes for a few seconds, and I think double clothesline each other, and that was it.
Yeah, they did double clothesline, and then other guys came out and kind of broke it up, and then like just for historic purposes, we should note that Hulk Hogan won that Royal Rumble. Very much.
Yep.
And he did win 2 in a row, so he won the next year. But anyway, we're not on the next year. We're not talking about Hulk Hogan. We're talking about
Stone Cold in 3.
Did he? No, he did.
Yeah, he won 3. He's still got the most.
Fuck Stone Cold. Edit this out. Fuck him. Edit this out.
All right.
Fuck Dave. Edit this out. Fuck you, cuz. Edit this out. Dave, fuck you. Edit this out. Fuck him.
Stone Cold.
Anyway.
All right. So because obviously they planned this out for not crazy long. It wasn't like the Macho Hogan story.
I mean, back here, like there was a long time between pay-per-views, and like Vince actually, I can't believe we're talking about the same goddamn Vince that is around now, because he does he still writes Raw as it's on the air. That's how fucking last minute they are now. But back here, like you only have as much time, for the record, as the time that you create for yourself. Huh? Isn't that a great saying? Isn't that fucking breathe that shit in? So and Vince does not do that now, but back here he had plenty of legit time where between pay-per-views. He had like 3 months, 4 months, so he had plenty of time to breathe it. They knew they wanted Warrior to win the title when he won the title back from Rude at SummerSlam 79. They just did. And they understood that was happening. When they put him in there with Andre, they knew like we're priming you for a title run. Sure. Hulk Hogan was leaving after WrestleMania to film Suburban Commando, so it was the perfect time. And they chose the Warrior. Hulk knew months before he was leaving, and it was a whole thing. Like it was just I believe it won an Oscar. I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
I think Best Picture or something. I don't know. Anyway,
I'm not stressed out.
Shep, what have you done?
Nothing. 0.01%. It'll take me 6 weeks to recharge. What am I going to do for 6 weeks?
So I mean that they knew the Warrior a long time before was going to be world champion, and Royal Rumble was just laying the television seeds because it was coming. It was coming like a motherfucker. I don't know what accent.
Yep. There you go. And we're on to that run. So finally, we realize that Warrior is slated to be the person to take the torch off of Hogan, and he beats Hogan. I'd say it's a little over 25 minutes of a match. For a Hogan Warrior kind of match, it was actually very well done. I'm pretty sure that this was a Pat Patterson masterpiece. If we can,
this was it was Pat Patterson masterpiece.
Yeah.
And this was a masterpiece in the sense that they didn't think they could make a match with face versus face. Vince was very against face versus face because he didn't want to split the crowd. So Pat Patterson designed it and got with Hulk and got with the Warrior, and they really laid out a really good match. And it doesn't really hold up to this day because so much of it is them fucking doing the test of strength, where you see the famous meme nowadays of where it looks like when either one is winning the test of strength, they're blowing the other guy. That's right. You haven't seen those? Like those?
I've seen them.
So I mean, like honestly, if you go back and watch it now, like there's certain spots that still hold up really well, but the whole match doesn't because it all played off the crowd energy. They knew going into it that the crowd's going to be fucking bonkers and split, so let's play to it, and they did it perfect. Test of strength, fucking blah. So boring now. Bear hug, so boring.
It was just cheer after cheer after cheer.
Yeah, but they laid it out so nice, it worked perfectly. Ironically, though. But I'm going to bring everybody down a little bit. That actually buy rate did not do as well as they thought. Macho Man and Hulk Hogan the year before WrestleMania 5 like blew the doors off the buy rate for that pay-per-view. And pay-per-view was still in its major infancy at that point. But Hulk and Savage on closed circuit televisions and the pay-per-view that was available really got a massive buy rate. That feud was huge. And WrestleMania 5 for a long time, I think up until WrestleMania 14? Was the highest? It was the highest bought WrestleMania ever.
Well, there's a couple of proofs in that pudding, Jess, and some of them, not to interrupt you, but number one is you got to have a heel. That's number one. People need to be capitalized by that, and two, you got to have some work talent. I'm not saying that Hogan can't work, but Warrior definitely can't work. And you saw Macho running that match in 5, and you saw even that storyline was a year long, Jess. This storyline was less.
No, I disagree with you because the buy rate is a reflection off the build up to the pay-per-view. You don't know how the match is going to be good or bad until you get to the pay-per-view. Just like Steamboat and Savage, Andre and Hulk drew that house for Mania 3, but Savage and Steamboat stole the show because nobody ever knew that match was going to steal the show until they were there live witnessing it. And the buy rate, that people already bought the pay-per-view before Savage and Steamboat even got in the ring.
Your point.
So same thing. Like it was the build up. People Warrior was super over, no question. Hulk was Hulk.
But you need a heel. I mean, you would agree with that, right?
We can look back now and see this. At the time, you didn't know it. But you look back now and look back at that time period, wrestling was starting to cool off because it was such a hot and heavy thing in the rock and wrestling era. And Hulk was hot all the way up until like 88, 89. He started to kind of come down a little bit. So I think Vince really was starting to lose his grip a little bit. It was still mainstream. It's still a household, product. Yeah. But at the same time, wrestling started to cool off. And then, so Vince was right and he was wrong. He was right in that face versus face never really works. Yep. He was wrong in the sense that Pat Patterson and Hulk and Warrior absolutely delivered. And that's credit to Warrior and Hulk. I don't care what anybody says about either one of their work. Sure. In all honesty, even as a non-Warrior fan, that Warrior absolutely held his end of the bargain on that.
They cooperated very well. They did exactly what needed to be done. They listened, they practiced, and they pulled it off.
So the interest, for some odd reason, I don't know why, just didn't materialize, and it was down quite a bit from Mania 5. And to this day, it's a controversy. They don't know if it's because WWE went in full-fledged pay-per-view at that point. If that just because it was spread out, buy rates dipped automatically because so many other people were able to get the pay-per-views that never got it. Maybe they didn't. Maybe the fucking cable company didn't process their fucking payment for 14 days. I don't know. But I don't know what happened at that point because really by 90 the pay-per-view became more common and people could get it more, and so nobody knows if it dipped like that. But the interest was kind of down, like not kind of a lot down from WrestleMania 5. So again, the industry was changing, the way you watch wrestling on pay-per-view was changing. So I say chalk it up to that, because I mean there's no way the fan base wasn't majorly into Hulk versus Warrior. There's no way.
He nailed him. Here it is. He moved out of the way. Look out, the big splash. 1, 2. He got him. He got him. Unbelievable. The Warriors won the title. We have a new World Wrestling Federation champion. And new World Wrestling Federation champion.
And I think you're onto something, Jess, and I think it's why there's a change later. We're going to get to it in just a second, because after that match, that was great. Pass the torch. He briefly holds both titles, right? He vacates the IC title. It's later won by who?
It was, I believe, if I'm thinking right, it was the Red Rooster.
Oh, you stupid
Red Rooster, Dave.
Huh? No.
Oh, Mr. Perfect then. Mr. Perfect was like
Mr. Perfect. There you go. Yeah, Mr. Perfect.
I thought it would be the Red Rooster.
Yeah. What's crazy about this whole title run, and maybe it's because of the buy rates that Jess is talking about, is you would think that the Warriors going to hold this thing for a long time. Hogan's no more than a year before he drops one. He's held titles for 4 years at that point. Warrior really holds his title for less than a year, and he had some matches where he defended it, but the only real notable defense he had, in my opinion, was against Rick Rude. He did defeat people, but a lot of things were tag matches too, and other items where he really didn't have to defend it. And then all of a sudden, he gets that great match against Rude, where he beats him, and that's great. He pulls it over. But then at Rumble, which is a total surprise to me at the time, he's wrestling fucking Sergeant Slaughter, and he gets beat. And once again, it's a heel victory. Don't get me wrong, but I was like, why? Why are you pulling this off of him? We didn't know this when we were kids.
I'm glad you brought this up, because this was double sabotage on both companies' part.
Yeah.
Because it's funny how Sting and the Warrior are connected, and because they were the Blade Runners, and Sting beat. Actually, let me go back further. Warrior beat Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania, which was April 1st of 1990. Sting beat Ric Flair for the NWA Championship in Great American Bash, which was July of 1990. So a little after, because Sting blew his ACL out. Sting was actually supposed to beat Flair in February of 1990, but because he blew his ACL out, they postponed it and they pushed it all the way to the Great American Bash. Both guys beat the biggest wrestlers of all time in their respective promotions. Flair being the greatest champion of all time, and a lot of people regarded him as the greatest wrestler ever at that point. And then Hogan, obviously the biggest attraction ever that had been, and rocketed wrestling into mainstream wrestling and was Vince's boy. Loses to Warrior, clean in the middle. Flair, same thing, gets pinned clean. Neither one of them had any challengers set up for them afterwards. Had any kind of momentum afterwards. It was all cut. Warrior, after he wins the title, was fucking put on house shows where he teamed with the Road Warriors and they fought. Ultimately, it was a demolition, which again, 6-man face paint tag. Hello, party.
Yeah. Oh, you're drawing money, bro, without a doubt.
Kind of. But I mean, it's not doing anything for the World Championship. It's not doing anything for the Warriors legacy.
Agreed.
He just beat. So what do you do? What's your effort after Sting beats arguably the greatest wrestler to ever live, and the Warrior beats arguably the most famous wrestler and the most household name and the biggest wrestler box office wise that ever lived? What would your plan be? You got to fucking hit the pavement, start giving him good, fresh new challengers, having him defend those titles and fucking be fighting champions. But no, like Sting, same thing. They put Sting in there with Sid Vicious at fucking Halloween Havoc, and then right after, and that was a hokey finish where there was a twin Sting, and then they fucking brought in the Black Scorpion bullshit, and that watered Sting's reign down and fucked him up. And the same thing with the Warrior. Like the Warrior, I can't believe I'm fucking actually defending the Ultimate Warrior at this point. Like they didn't do anything for him.
Just perfect.
He had no challenge.
DiBiase.
The only fresh guy, Earthquake, they fucking fed to Hulk. Because he put Hulk out, he sat on Hulk's chest, and Hulk went out and filmed the movie. And then Hulk comes back and faces Earthquake at SummerSlam with all the fucking heat and all the drama, And Warrior faces Rick Rude, a guy who he's beaten many times before. So I mean, they did not set the Warrior up for success at all, just as NWA did not, or WCW didn't set Sting up for success at all. I'll never get it. So look, You will never fucking hear me. I want all this edited out because I'll never fucking defend the Warrior.
Nope, because you're about to tell the truth.
Bro.
But are you telling me the buttons broke? The stop buttons broke?
Yeah.
But like, how are you supposed to get the two people that beat the two greatest wrestlers ever? How the fuck are you supposed to get them over by putting them in tag matches or fucking hokey twin sting matches or Black Scorpion bullshit or giving the hottest fucking heel Earthquake that you have, feed him to Hulk, which again, you can say what you want about Hulk and you know, he fucking politicked. And he came back and he's like, I want fucking Earthquake because I can big boot leg drop him, even though he didn't actually beat Earthquake. He didn't pin Earthquake. Yeah. They kept Earthquake hot. But okay, so that's fine. So Hulk comes back at SummerSlam 90 and fucking barely beats the Earthquake by count out. Fucking feed Earthquake to the Warrior at that point. Like, build your champion. Never fucking happened. Yeah. So it was a conflict. It really was. When Hulk came back, Hulk was Vince's baby, but the Warrior was his new baby. So, but Vince didn't do any favors when Hulk was gone. So if people want to accuse Hulk of shitting on the Warrior and politicking, I won't disagree with that. But Hulk was gone for 4 months, three and a half months, somewhere like that. And Vince didn't do jack shit for him. Vince put Warrior, like I said, in those hokey 6-man tag matches, and didn't do it. Had him beat Mr. Perfect on house shows, someone who he'd beaten before. Had him face DiBiase and tours of Japan and stuff. Someone who he'd beaten before, or who Hulk had handily beaten before. And like, you know, nobody posed a threat to the Warrior at all. There was no drama in the Warrior beating anybody. So they fast forward to fucking Royal Rumble 91. Slaughter's this Iraqi sympathizer. They set the table for Hulk to come back, and it blew up in their face, by the way. And Warrior gets the title taken off him, and he gets put in a great actually feud with Randy Savage. So
we're gonna talk about.
I wanted to say that because both fucking guys that were the Blade Runners, it's ironic how they were split, but they were the same in the opposite.
Yeah, they're linear, right?
And both their first title runs were absolutely shit on, and it didn't make any fucking sense. It didn't make any sense.
It's kind of funny. It's like it's almost like, you know. What did Stone Cold tell Dean Ambrose? Resting on your laurels. It's almost like Vince is like, we have this big plan. Hogan and Warrior are going to have a face-off at the Rumble, and then the ultimate matchup at WrestleMania, and then Warrior's going to win. And then what? That's it. Because imagine if they would have kept it on him and kept him going hot, and then when Undertaker debuted, that could have been like your big mega, you know, Warrior versus Taker.
There's a lot.
It was like resting on the laurels and not planning ahead.
Hulk wasn't dead.
There's a lot of what ifs here, right?
Hulk wasn't dead yet, and so I understand.
You could have the rematch with Hulk too, though.
And he just because literally the week after WrestleMania 6, Jack Tunney made an announcement that this match was such epic proportions that we will never have a rematch. He legitimately announced that, which could have been heat to build for them actually to finally overrule that.
That's what I'm saying, though.
But I mean, like they totally shit on it. The week after, Jack Tunney was like, because of the magnitude of this match, they will never fucking rematch again. That was a really telling statement because they could have gone either way. They could have shit on it like they did and did nothing with it, or that could have been like, oh, because Jack Tunney said they're never doing it again, they're totally going to do it again. Like, you know, it's funny. They went to the LA Coliseum where their original inkling for WrestleMania 7 was the LA Coliseum. Warrior versus Hulk rematch is probably the only thing at the time that would have even attempted to draw 90,000 or 100,000.
Yeah, for sure.
But they take it off the Warrior and they put it on Slaughter, who was fat and old. And I'm sorry, I'm not being rude. He was way past his prime. But they thought the Iraq War we in Saudi Arabia, right?
Well, it was the Iraqi War. They
Gulf War.
They attacked Saudi Arabia, bro.
They were in Kuwait, right? Or the whole thing.
They attacked Kuwait. I'm sorry, they attacked Kuwait, but it was the Iraqi War.
I've had a few beers. So when that happened, so the whole thing was like to get so much heat on Slaughter but here's the problem with that, and I know we're getting off the Warrior, but Vince has done such a good idea, or did such a good job, I should say, from 84 on, of making Hulk the real American. That was his goddamn theme song, and carrying the flag down there. We forgot that Sergeant Slaughter was a really big baby face that defended America in the early 80s, like 79, 80. He was a heel at first, but then Slaughter became a face and faced Iron Sheik and had a famous boot camp match with him and all that stuff. And Slaughter was, fucking on G.I. Joe, for God's sake. Like, he was the American hero. But Vince is so amazing because amazing or a shithead, whatever you want to say. When he took the company over, he erased everything. Andre was never beaten. Andre was never slammed, right? So he did everything so good to erase everything to make Hulk the fucking man, the realest American you could have, the fucking biggest superhero you could have, and all that stuff. And then so he brings Slaughter back and makes Slaughter an Iraqi sympathizer, thinking that people are going to remember the very history that he fucking worked for the last 6 years to fucking erase. So you get fucking Slaughter, who's fat and out of shape at this point, who can't perform very well, and then Vince is playing off his old, remember he was an American hero? No, not really, dickhead, because you fucking worked your ass off during the Hulk era to erase everybody. We are only to know that Hulk Hogan is Jesus Christ when it comes to professional wrestling because you fucking burned that into our brains. And now you're bringing this guy in. You're supposed to turn him heel and have it be a big deal because of history that you erased. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So
no, it does.
He comes in and he beats the Warrior. So they shit on the Warrior's run even more, like by having him beat him. And then thank God he was at least put in there with a talented guy like Randy. It's the only saving grace thing. And then the whole thing flopped. They had to move the event to Sports Arena, the LA Sports Arena, which only held like 17,000 people, 18,000 people. And they claim, it's because the Iraq War or whatever. Security reasons. We couldn't have it in an outdoor venue at the LA Coliseum because we were afraid of terrorist attacks. Okay, cool. Because a roof is going to stop a terrorist attack, right? And there's no way a bomb or a plane being driven into a building will fucking penetrate a roof, right? Yeah, totally. Maybe it's a smaller arena, it's a smaller target, maybe. I don't know. Fucking ridiculous. Like the whole
fact is, bro, they didn't sell the tickets.
The reason why they didn't go to the LA Sports Arena or the Coliseum was because they legitimately only sold like 20,000 seats, which in a 90,000 seat arena would look fucking embarrassing. So with Hulk and Slaughter as the main event in an Iraq war that got hot in Survivor Series that time when they turned Slaughter heel and
sure.
1990. But when Hulk won the Royal Rumble in 1991. I think that night or the next day, the U.S. declared victory. So they had this.
Yeah, it was over.
It was over. So it was just dead storyline all the way until WrestleMania. So they fucking sacrificed the Warriors run, the Warrior beating Hulk, all that momentum. They sacrificed it for that shit that didn't end up working. That ended 3-4 months before Mania even took place.
Yeah.
I know it took me a long time to get to that point, but unfucking believable. Like,
it was literally a war of, it wasn't even a war of days. It was a war of hours.
It was not even period.
Yeah. So yeah. And, to that, just to track it back a little bit, we knew what was going on. Obviously we get a heel, victory with Warrior getting beat by Slaughter after Macho King just lays in a scepter right to the Ultimate Warrior's freaking right between the eyes, bro. Like, you gotta love Macho Man when he lays it in. The title belt on Hogan in the back. Savage ain't gonna hold back, and he pummeled him with that thing. I was like, oh my god!
Right now, I remember being pissed. I remember being pissed at that too as a kid.
And from there, and you even as a kid, you're wondering like,
I was mad.
Why is he going after Savage? I know Savage did that, but he should go back for the title.
You were not Warrior fans. I'm not including Dave in this because I can't remember what Dave did, but I know me, Craig, and Joe fucking stood up and cheered because we loved it.
Oh, did you really?
Oh God, we loved the Warrior. I hated the Warrior because he beat Hogan. So
yeah,
I mean, loved Slaughter pinning him. But
I thought it was great.
Like honestly, it was a shit storyline, like I just explained, and like it was just.
And most people didn't feel that way.
Run from the start. They did. They really did.
Yeah. So, anywho, we get a nice little feud with Macho King, who it is a great feud. It's probably one of those underrated moments, or is it an underrated feud?
No, let me stop you right there. This is probably the Warriors' best work. Period. End of story.
Well, agreed. You can't say it like that.
Yeah?
It's not the Warriors' greatest work. It's great work because of somebody else.
Well,
I mean,
that's not true.
Yeah, but
it is
with
true.
The Warrior.
Is that true?
What?
Are you trying to tell me that Macho didn't cover that whole thing himself and walk him through that?
The Warrior physically didn't do what he needed to do and make that match great.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that Warrior couldn't hit a spot and couldn't do what
Warrior's
he's told.
Career,
but somebody had to tell him.
You got to understand too. Let me explain myself. That's all I expect from him. And I don't mean that to be rude at all. Like I'm not. You can't compare him to Savage. You can't compare him to. Why the fuck am I defending the Ultimate Warrior? What the fuck's happening?
The greatest episode of all time.
Can't defend. He's overrated. You can't defend him against like Savage. Savage is Savage. Hulk is Hulk. Like Flair is Flair. Those guys. The Warrior's not on their level. He's just not. But like it. I think Dave, before I interrupted you, were going to get into this, but Savage had an inkling for wanting to walk people through his matches. So, like for example, when he wrestled Steamboat, he invited Steamboat to his house, and they scripted and wrote out their match, spot by spot.
You're talking not just spot by spot, but like every pin, every hold, everything.
Macho Man was just into that, whereas Flair always bragged about, we called it in the ring, we called it on the fly. Savage was like, dude. Savage knew where he was, right? He's on the biggest fucking stage in the world. WWF was the shit, right? They were the biggest show. I could care less what a hardcore wrestling fan said. They just were. They had more eyeballs on them. They were the household brand, like all that stuff. So Savage knew where he was, and Savage was like, "I'm planning this shit out step by step." So again, he invited the Warrior to his house, and they fucking mapped out and wrote out, and the Warrior liked it that way, and they mapped out their WrestleMania 7 match to a T, and it was a great match.
Yeah. And it was a good match, but why take the title off of Warrior back at Rumble? What are we going back to? We talked about we're going back to Hogan at WrestleMania 7, and that's why it happened, and that's just the way it goes. And Warrior moves on to that Savage feud, and like you said, some of his best work ever. And I think in hindsight that's good, but in the moment, I think a lot of fans were like, "What the fuck? Why did they pull that off of him? Why is he not the champion anymore? This is bullshit. Why didn't he get another shot? He honestly never got a chance to rematch."
Yeah, but to give credit to the Mania 7 match too, like there's so, and obviously there was I don't know, I'm assuming Pat Patterson helped them with this match. I'm just guessing, but Macho Man and Warrior laid it out, and they had it all booked out. Everything they did in that match, it stole the show, without saying, and it was a retirement match. It was career versus career. Whoever lost had to. Macho Man, I think Dave said earlier at this point, or maybe Dave and I were talking off.
No, we were talking about earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like Savage was actually, he was still married to Elizabeth, in real life. And even though Elizabeth has been off TV for months, and we'll get to that. And then, but they wanted to have a child or try to have a child.
Sure.
So Macho Man wanted to be off the road. He wanted Macho Man had been running hard since 85 when he got brought in. And so he was tired. He wanted a break. And this is 1991, so that's a long, long run. And so he just wanted to take a break and have a baby with Elizabeth and all that stuff. And that was his big deal. And honestly, the rumor has it is that he really wanted, Macho Man was always very self-conscious about his look, his muscles and his body. And so which was why he wears like a shirt later, or actually during this time he started wearing a shirt. Because he was getting off roids, a lot of people said, and this is just hearsay, or growth hormones, whatever he was doing, because that would affect his sperm count, and he couldn't get it pregnant. I know that I'm not making a joke. That's legitimately what he wanted to do. So that's why Macho Man wanted to get off the air and all that stuff. So he started long before that to get off the roids and get cycle off. So he started wearing a shirt as the Macho King because he was very self-conscious about his body.
Yeah.
So he wanted to get off that stuff and increase his sperm count and increase the chances of them getting pregnant. Obviously, they never did, but that was the thing backstage. It could be bullshit rumor, but that was the thing.
There's the whole thing. Yeah, there's the whole thing about Macho Man in this time frame where there's just a lot of different opinions. Where he wanted to have a baby. They wanted to have a baby. Him and Elizabeth, pronouns pal, right? And he gets off the air, and then there's the struggle of him wanting to be back on TV and wrestling, and he's supposed to be doing that announcing work, and eventually it leads to him actually leaving the WWF, which is just crazy years later. And I just find that phenomenal that they would keep somebody like that on the shelf. Why would they do that if it wasn't his suggestion? I think Macho was just very torn at this moment and didn't know what he wanted and didn't know how he wanted it.
And to get back to the actual match, like they put this match really good. The Warrior, what do we say? How did he come to the ring?
Oh, he's running.
WrestleMania 7, he didn't. He actually walked. And he walked. He walked down to the ring and he stared at Savage because they both laid it out to where it's like, this is our careers, right? Like, this is our fucking careers. Like,
this is a big deal.
They built this fucking intensity up for this match. And the Warrior, when his music hit, Savage came down, and was carried down on the fucking throne and all that stuff. And then when the Warriors music hit, people were like, "Oh, he's gonna rock it out!"
Yeah.
And he comes out walking and staring, and he just pointed and he walked all the way down to the ring. And even Gorilla Monsoon's like, or Bobby Heenan, I think, might have said it. He's walking, he's not running. What's wrong with him? And he was just like, looking, and he totally took it serious and everything. And I think that added such a levity to this match.
That's just great, yeah.
And a different level. And again, people who want to say, Flair and Steamboat, you're never going to dispute how great technically that match was, but like theater wise and storyline wise, this is why WWF was the goddamn best. Like, their production value was so fucking out of this world, where the details would just be like, you're gonna walk down, and it could have been a Savage or Warrior suggestion. It could have been Warrior saying, I'm gonna walk down. This is fucking dead serious. I'm walking down. And like, it's just such an amazing attention to detail that so many people, when you want to fight WWF and say, oh, they're bullshit, they were cartoon. Fuck you. They were making like actual story boxes and brackets for you to follow, and like it made total sense. So that match. It was full of little shit like that. Of course, the ending was Savage and Elizabeth reuniting, which I don't want to cover in detail now because we're talking about the Warrior. But I mean, the Warrior beats him and pins him. I dispute the ending of this match, if I may fast forward, because nowadays, a good match, and I'm doing air quotes, or a 5-star match, and I'm drawing stars in the air right now, is based off, 950 false finishes and everybody
5,000 suicide dives.
Everybody kicking out of everybody's signature and finishing moves or whatever. So they led up to that in this match. They had a couple false finishes. The Warrior did the press and the splash, and Savage kicked out, which was crazy. The place went nuts. If you go back and watch WrestleMania 7, the fucking place went nuts when Savage kicked out. Again, to show you more that he's more than a heel. This is for their career. He kicked out. You still saw like fucking Savage is still Savage. He's still that guy that we loved, like he'd been eaten up by the heel lust and rage, since Hulk Hogan WrestleMania 5. So he just, was kind of, you were reminded that, God, he's still really good. And then the Warrior kicked out of the elbow drop. Yeah. Which is okay. Hulk did that WrestleMania 5, right?
Sure.
Hulk did that. Okay, that's fine. Warrior. Well, let's say Warrior's on par with Hulk as far as storylines concerned. The character. Okay, Warrior kicked out of 5 fucking elbows, and then ended up beating Savage with a boot to the chest. I fucking dispute that. That if you look at that was so far ahead of its time, and I don't mean that in a good way, because usually that phrase is used in a good way.
Yeah.
5 elbow drops, really?
Yeah. No, really? Yeah, that was a little too much.
Why'd you have to do that? Like, why? Like, I get it. I don't even mind. Like, Bruce Pritchard, I think, talked on his podcast about the boot to the chest where Warrior beat him. He just put his boot on his chest. He didn't cover him. He just stuck his boot on his chest while he was standing and put his arms in the air.
Sure.
And Bruce was like, so many people in the back were pissed. I don't even dispute that. I thought that was a beautiful ending. I do.
It just adds to
dispute the 5 elbow drops is absolute trash.
Yeah, that's not necessary.
But look at where wrestling is now. Nobody respects anybody's finisher they kick out 100 times. It took Brock 5 F5s to beat so-and-so or whoever. And it's just like, come on, man. Like, I was so mad as a fan back here because I still didn't like the Warrior. And I was a huge Savage fan as well. And I was so pissed off that, like, I'm a 5 elbow drop, even as a kid, and like, I think I was, this is 91, so I was probably like a freshman or almost a freshman. And I was just like, really, 5 elbow drops? Really? Like, you had to really shit on Savage. Obviously, they planned it. I get it. Savage was in on it. Savage agreed to it. But at the same time, it's like, God damn it. Like, why? So there's no point to my madness right here. I dispute the ending. I hated it.
Well, you know what's interesting about this whole thing when we were talking?
The kick out of the 5 elbow drops.
No, I feel you. I feel you on that. When we're talking about this, I don't want to get too far off the rails, but I was thinking about all the matches that we talked about at major moments. It's still the show. Macho was in like 90% of them in this 7-8 year run. I mean, you start talking about WrestleMania 3, right? Who stole the show? Savage and Steamboat. You talk about one of the greatest WrestleMania matches and storylines in history. WrestleMania 5 is Savage and Hogan, right? Then you start jumping into WrestleMania 7. We take a little jump where they totally steal the show with someone as inferior, in my opinion, as the Warrior when it comes to match work. Savage steals the show again. Then you fast forward to how about WrestleMania? WrestleMania 8? Yeah. fucking Macho versus Flair, right? Do I have that right? And totally, works the leg and such a storyline. Oh man, Macho's done. That ankle's got to be broke, and he beats Ric Flair. It's fucking phenomenal. And that was the kind of stuff that would get you jumping on your seat. I can't believe he fucking beat Ric Flair.
Shows you how great Macho is, man.
He's so. I don't want to call him underrated, bro. But I don't think he gets his due. People forget about that guy. Anybody who forgets about that guy, it's just ridiculous. And I know there's not many that do, but nobody should forget about that guy. He's one of the best, man, and he could tell a story better than 99% of them.
What a match! What a match! Savage doesn't have any idea where he's at. I hope she's happy. I hope she's happy. She didn't look too happy, did she? No, but that's why she's here, to rub it in. Another spear by the Warrior! Monsoon, there can't be a winner. Whoever stays, stays. Whoever leaves, leaves. At the core of this match... Look at this! It's over! Oh, my God, no!
Yeah, we actually have Macho taking that retirement, going off into the sunset, doing some announcing work going on, right? Then you think we'd get Warrior back into a title picture, but that doesn't happen. We actually get what I thought was until obviously, eventually the bell has to ring and you could talk about how good or bad that was, but we're off into that Jake Roberts and Undertaker storyline, which I have to tell you, watching the Warrior being scared of something was a totally different churn. I thought they really committed to the storyline. I really enjoyed the storyline, and because as a kid, I was legitimately scared for Warrior because I think I was still a Warrior fan at this point. I'm not going to deny that. And watching Warrior go through the stuff with Jake and Undertaker. Jess, can you talk about that briefly and talk about that storyline? Because I loved it when they had them on had those Brother Love episodes and other items where Jake's was it even Brother Love? I think it was just
the
pit,
whole thing
right?
was the Undertaker was a thing at this point, and so actually the Undertaker and Warrior were feuding. Yeah. So Jake was a face and stepped in at this point and said, Warrior, let me show you. I'm a snake. I'll show you the dark side and all that stuff or whatever. You want to beat the Undertaker? Listen to me. So again, Jake was a face for years up until this point. Mm-hmm. So people believed it, and he was doing little vignettes where this is where professional wrestling and I start to differ with each other. They did these really kind of stupid, corny vignettes of him taking the Warrior through like different tests and all that stuff. And the last one was the Warrior locked in a room with the King Cobra, and then the Cobra bit the Warrior. But what I really hate, and this is more of a production note, they did the camera from the point of view of the Warrior and the snake biting him and Jake looking at him. I hate that shit so much. And I fucking hate that shit. That's when we're making movies, pal. That's where that steps in. Yeah. And I hate that shit. That's when I always say wrestling should go back to the emulation of a sporting event, I mean, cut shit like that out.
Yes. All together.
Business. Same thing when again, side note, when Foley beat Rock in that empty arena match and they lowered the pallet on the forklift down, they did the camera point of view from the pallet lowering down on the Rock.
Yeah, and I did not like that.
Which means that move was coming.
Yeah. Like, why do you have to fucking do that? That takes me out of the storyline and the suspending disbelief more than anything when you do a shit camera angle where it shouldn't be, like when Braun would tip a truck over, there's 19 camera angles cutting.
I hate that shit too.
So yeah, all of a sudden the camera crew happened to be around that truck because they knew Braun was going to tip it over. Like, it's just come on. So I dislike these vignettes. I know, Dave, you remember them, and that's fine. Yeah. And a lot of people do remember these vignettes,
too,
but I hated them. And I thought they were terrible, and I thought they would just do odd, ridiculous, like, camera angles, and, like, I hated them. It showed me that Vince this is what I always wanted. It's kind of like when George Lucas remade Star Wars. We didn't have CGI back in the 70s and 80s, so now I have CGI, and I'm going to redo it, and this is my actual vision. This is what I wanted everything to be back in the 70s and 80s, and it was shit. And this is what I feel. Vince was finally like, this is what I always wanted WWE to be, or WWF to be, back in '84. And you shouldn't have wanted this because it's fucking crap. Yeah, and so this is what I feel, that where Vince was starting to go off the rails, mainly because not just these vignettes, but he's feuding with the Warrior, Warrior is feuding with Undertaker, and then they put him in the feud with Jake, but already he's being programmed for the main event of SummerSlam to be tag teaming with Hulk Hogan to face the Triangle of Terror, which is like Slaughter, Iron Sheik, and General Adnan. And like, there's too much bullshit going on. It's one thing to start shooting angles on a pay-per-view to set them up for their feuds afterwards. That's fine. That happens all the time. But Vince started just fucking doing 1,900 things at once, and now we're going to get into the Warrior leaving and all that stuff and getting fired for the first time or suspended. And it's just it started with weird booking that didn't make sense, which it started with the Jake shit.
Yeah, and I can't recall. Just you can edit this out. My question, but did they even end up facing off? Did Warrior end up taking out Jake? I can't remember.
I think on how I know Undertaker and Warrior did in body bag matches.
Yeah, but nothing televised, right?
I don't know if him and Jake ever did. I don't think anything ever came of it. I think what happened was, here's what happened. Like, here's the controversy. I'm gonna dive right into it.
Sure. Yeah, because that is what's next on my notes too.
The Warrior held Vince up for more money right before the pay-per-view. That is true and that is untrue. What actually ended up happening was about a month before, the Warrior wrote Vince a letter that said, I'm disappointed with my payoff from WrestleMania 7. I felt I should be paid more. I should be on par with Hulk and everybody else. And I'm not. I know I'm not. I don't even get the same merchandising deals that Hulk does. So I feel that I should get paid more. If you want me to perform at SummerSlam, you will pay me accordingly. You will pay me on par with Hulk. And again, the Warrior wrote a 5-page letter that, in Vince's defense, I'm sure was like the writings of a maniac, because the Warrior wasn't. The Warrior wasn't really stable, and so Vince, wrote a letter back, and this was a month before SummerSlam. So he did hold him up. So Vince said in the letter back, "Yes, I will do it. I will pay you whatever. But I feel that you think you're a legend in your own mind, that you're bigger than you really think you are. Hulk is the household name. Hulk is the guy. And he's always been my guy. You are my guy too, but like, you're not bigger than the company. You're not bigger than whatever." So that was the back and forth they had.
The money speaks for itself, right? The sellouts of the shows, the buy rates, everything tells you that Hogan's still the guy to this moment. I mean, you can see it tapering off
during the Warriors' run, because they booked him like shit, and I will defend him that.
Yeah,
his return receipts were not very big, so not as big as Hulk's.
Yes.
So wrestling itself, if you look back now, it did start to decline in 90, 91, 92, obviously, when I hit the wall. So it was happening no matter what. But at the time, everyone's still riding that wave of fucking, we're fucking stars. We should be paid accordingly. So I don't disagree with the Warrior wanting that. But let's kill the rumor right here. He, right before SummerSlam 91, he didn't walk up to Vince going, "Hey Vince, I'm holding up for this amount of money unless you pay me." And Vince said, "Sure." And then he goes to the match and he comes back. What happened is that the letters took place about a month before, and Vince said, "Sure." And then when Warrior got back to the back after SummerSlam 91, a road agent told him Vince wants to see you in his office. So he went to Vince's office, and Vince gave him a suspension notice and said, "You're suspended without pay until further notice." And Warrior's like, "This is crap." And he's like, "I already paid you. I'm paying you what I agreed to pay you, but you're done. You're suspended right now without payment." So, okay. I mean, he paid him what he asked for in the letter. But
and then he suspended him without pay going forward. Yeah.
So the Warrior, between that time when he left and came back at WrestleMania 8, was never fired. He was just on an indefinite suspension, which a lot of people didn't know that. And I didn't really know that until you start researching everything years after. Yeah. So and nobody really knew about the letter either. No. Even in the self-destruction DVD that we'll get to, they talked about how like it's like the Warriors stood him up that night and said, "Hey, Vince, can you come here for a minute? I want this money or I'm not going out tonight." It didn't.
It's like they confused the Jeff Jarrett story with the Ultimate Warrior story.
I'm not trying to act like I know everything. I researched it over the years, so I mean, I didn't know this either. I believed everything I was told because that's what they told me. So that's what happened. So
what you're saying, Jess, is when he came back in that 92-93 run, he never really left.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So when we get into that, he actually does come back on TV, and he's rescuing Hogan, of all people, from the Papa Shango Sid Vicious monstrosity. Yeah. And apparently, what's that?
1992.
Yeah, 1992 goes into 93.
He was on suspension, which we thought he was fired from August of 91 all the way through March. I think very late March of Maybe WrestleMania was like April 7th or some shit. So he's either late March or early April of 92 is when he came back.
Exactly, yeah. And there's some writings here, I can't really confirm it, but they even said that he was able to get a little bit of creative control on his contract in the process. Yeah. I just looked at like that can't be good. You know,
for anybody.
For most people, but especially Warrior. God, Jesus. And I'll be very candid. I think he would have been a 2-time champion at this point, coming in somewhere. He would have gotten the strap again, if not for the steroid trial that nearly caved this promotion completely. He was blowing tests left and right, and he was experimenting with HGH, trying to get off steroids. And I think Vince is like, this is just too much. I can't deal with it. You got to go. And so fighting with Vince, blowing all those tests led to what I thought was the second leave of the company, but I guess technically it's the first leave. Because he was never at the end of
92, he was scheduled at Survivor Series of 92 to team with Macho against Flair and Ramon. And and that's when it happened. He failed tests, and Vince started really cranking down because the steroid trial, the accusations were already out. It was the government was starting to investigate, and it started to get really heavy. And so Vince was just pretty much like, I got to test everybody. And so he tested the Warrior. Another guy that he tested was the Bulldog. And they both left because basically you failed. You got to go. Yeah. So and that's what happened. That's really what ended the Warriors' first run, as we speak of, from 87 all the way through to late 92. That's really what happened.
Late 92, early 93. Yeah, exactly. And he basically takes a 4-year hiatus, that semi-retired life. And then he gets another chance once again with Vince and the WWF. But guess what? Warrior likes to fuck things up. And
I was there. I was there at WrestleMania 12 live at Anaheim Pond, and I saw the Warriors comeback match against Triple H where he beats him in 30 seconds. First of all, the controversy started on that, where Vince wanted, he was trying to push Triple H, not to the extent, he didn't know he was going to push Triple H to the extent that happened. And Triple H did not know he was going to push himself into Stephanie McMahon at this point.
But vagina,
it was going to happen later. Yeah. Obviously that was implied in the vagina. You don't have to be graphic. And then she gave him oral sex. Anyway, so,
with his nose.
Oh my God. Stop. No. David.
Yeah. Yeah, we go.
Drink this, David. Drink it.
I'll rape you with my nose.
The throwback to old episodes, huh? That means we made
catch them on our channel.
Already available in the archives. Yeah.
Oh God. So he comes back, and the whole thing was like, Vince is like, look, Triple H, this is or he was Hunter Hearst Helmsley. He's my heel. I want to kind of protect him a little bit. They have like a 5 or 6 minute match. Give him some offense, but you're going to beat him. And Warrior was like, no, I'm going to beat him in 30 seconds. That's who I am. And Vince was like, all right. So Vince backed out at that point. He's like, you do whatever the fuck you want, pal. And so Vince, for the Warrior, came to Triple H and said, that's what we're doing. And I'm going to beat you in like 30 seconds. And that's just the way I am. It's my character. So no, I don't want to give you, you're an unknown heel that's not proving yourself. Why would I give you,
again, creative control? That's a problem.
But I mean, when you really think about it back here, was that wrong?
It kind of makes sense. It made sense back then.
It was probably the right move. Yeah.
I mean, fuck's sake. Like, I mean, come on, let him.
It's not for title or anything. It's just a heel. It's a heel match.
You advertised him before Mania. Some people probably bought WrestleMania 12 that wouldn't have bought Mania 12 because Warrior's going to be there. So you don't have to fucking have a 30-minute classic. Just fucking beat him.
Yeah. What could they really do?
He was Hunter Hearst Helmsley at this point. Who cares?
Yeah, there you go. But again, Warrior just starts to miss show after show, and guess what? I mean, I think Vince is very proud of things like this, where he really feels like if someone misses a show, I want to give them something better than what was there. And I think the hardest part about that is it's hard to replace the caliber of the Warrior, whether you like his talent,
because
you think he's overrated or not.
This was right before the NWO broke, so
sure.
I mean, so it wasn't like he was desperate at this point, but WCW had hired Hulk and Savage and a lot of old names, and they were trying to use older names to get their promotion, like, good sponsorships and stuff like that. But they were bringing young people in too. In '96, WCW was, and sure. It wasn't a war yet. Oh no, it was a war. Sorry, yeah, they were in the infant stages of the Monday Night War because Nitro debuted in September of '95. So this is 1996. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, they were in kind of a war, and Vince was airing the Huckster and Nacho skits and all that stuff, and Macho Man skits and bullshit. And so it was getting a little like they were mentioning each other on each other's television, which Vince, when he was number one, you never mention anybody else, especially number two. And he started mentioning WCW. So it was getting hot and heavy, and he brought the Warrior back to absolutely counter that, and just flopped. It failed because Warrior wasn't, he wasn't Hulk. I hate to directly compare him to him, but like Hulk's a game changer. Savage could even be a game changer if you want to talk about him a little bit. But like Warrior, here it's proving his point, or my point, that he's not a game changer. And I defended the shit out of him when it came to the Savage match and the way his first title run was handled, which his first title run was botched. And I'm totally all about that. You look at his IC title run, that was handled perfect. And you look at his World title run, it was fucking shit on by the company. They didn't do anything to help him. But again, people say what they want to say about Hulk and about he can't work and this and that or whatever. And that's absolute horseshit. Because like the Warrior didn't know how to work. And I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say that. I'm really true. And I'm really not trying to hammer on him. You gotta lean on Vince and that machine, right? You gotta fucking trust him and you gotta do it. And he was brought back and paid a lot of money, and his Warrior comics were pushed, and his fucking Warrior University.
I remember that actually, the Warrior comics
and all that crap. And so Warrior had total creative control. So you have total creative control when you come back in '96, and you still fucking find a way to be unhappy, and you still leave, and you still fuck shit up. I don't get it. I don't get it.
That's exactly what he did.
That's probably a mixture of a lot of stuff. He wanted to stay stuck in his old ways. He like you said, 100% creative control. And I'm sure, too, at the same time, Vince probably didn't want to. He probably didn't want to chance that again, too,
I'm sure, too, that the Warrior didn't really watch wrestling when he was away and didn't really understand. Wrestling declined quite a bit while he was gone. Not because of that he was gone, but just in general, it declined.
He wrestled for a lot of other smaller promotions, right? Like in between.
And it was a different kind of fan. Yeah. Different kind of fan. They wanted different things, and he really thought he could walk in like it was 1990, 1991 and demand this and demand that and get it, and he couldn't, and I found out the hard way.
Yeah, it just wasn't the same.
It's like, don't worry, I'll scrape the bottom without you. You know what I mean? Like, I'll hit rock bottom without you. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So once Warrior is told like, hey, your services are no longer required, we have a nice brief little train wreck in WCW for basically only 3 matches that led to a lot of confusion and no real payoff.
I mean, again, like, and I'm not even going to hammer on the Warrior. Like, I just explained that I think the Warrior is not sufficient enough when it comes to managing himself and fucking understanding the flow of wrestling. And then you put him in fucking trash WCW at the time, where they were on fire in '98, and that's when he came in there. And the ratings, Warrior debuted on Nitro, the ratings were fucking through the roof, and that's like he faced off with Hulk. So the interest was there, but then you realize it's not 1990 anymore. It's 8 years later. And, basically Hulk brought him back in because he wanted to recoup the loss.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's interesting.
Shit. Hogan denied it. Bischoff denies it. That's not. Of course, Hulk wanted that.
We all disagree. Right?
Yeah. Hulk knew that Bischoff had millions of dollars, and Warrior got a massive payday for the fucking 4 or 5 months that he was in WCW, a massive one, and just so he could lose to Hulk. Hulk brought him back in because he wanted to avenge a loss from 1990. That's it. End of the story. Anybody disagrees with me? Like. Well,
that's what I have in my.
I'm a Hulk fan telling you that.
That's what I have in my notes here. It was basically like Warrior and Hogan was described as one of the worst matches in pay-per-view history. But hey, Hogan got his win back, right?
Halloween Havoc 1998 was fucking awful. There were so many flubs. There were so many brutal spots. And like it was just awful. They weren't prepared. Both guys were so old at this point.
They probably didn't plan much, if anything.
No, they just thought the whole. I think they even did the double clothesline thing, right, Cuz? And they did the whole fucking stupid test of the ring. They pretended like it was 1990 again at the beginning of that match. And the crowd was dead silent. Like,
it was just horrible. Like, really? I remember being so excited when he first came, too. And then that happened, and it was good at first. I liked the build-up.
Nuts, and like it was not terrible, and then the Warrior came there, and he wanted the One Warrior Nation.
Yeah, that was.
You got the NWO, the LWO,
which was his religion, by the way, right? His One Warrior Nation, that was his religion.
Yeah. And so it was, don't even get me started on that shit. And so it was just always all bad. It was all bad, and it didn't work out, and fucking Hulk gets his win back, which didn't matter because it was probably one of the worst matches in modern wrestling history. And like, it just, it was fucking terrible. It was all bad.
In the ring. Horace! Hit the Warrior in the back of the head! Why? Run! Hogan wins the match! Obvious to me that blood is thicker than water, gentlemen. I can't believe what we just witnessed. Hogan wiped out this young man about 5 days ago, 6 days ago, and he comes in. He was just watching,
and he whacks the Warrior.
You know what a chance? I mean, I know because he took his Warrior Nation religion serious, but God, I mean, what a missed opportunity on that, right? I mean, what couldn't he just? Maybe not in WCW, maybe in the WWF run or have another run around that time, being a fucking heel cult leader of his religion. God damn, I mean, maybe the possibilities could have been endless.
See himself.
No, I know. That's what sucks.
I think and I think this is. I don't know if I want to talk about this at the end or now. Like,
we're pretty much to the end anyway.
Yeah, let me be honest.
Well, we got to go on to the Hall of Fame stuff.
Shit on him. He was on a different level. And I don't mean that on a higher level, and he was more intelligent than people. I don't mean that. And I'm not saying he's dumb either. I'm just saying I don't mean that, when I say higher level, you think that someone's on a higher level. He just was in his own fucking world, wasn't he? And it's sad because he hated wrestling, and I don't think he ever really wanted to be. The wrestling backstage politics is so toxic. It really is. It has been for years, and it still is now.
He thrived there, though.
And Warrior, God, I just don't. I know. I think Davey should finish, his career, and it's short lived after this. He fucking.
Well, basically,
get to the Hall of Fame, and
I honestly think he had less than 3 or 4 matches after this, after WCW. Just weird, random.
Or Jordan overseas, and
in Italy. That was his last match in Italy.
That was it. And then you got a huge.
But then they had the big bomb was the destruction of the Ultimate Warrior DVD, which was during when Warrior was trying to get the rights to his name, I believe, because wrong, and he was suing him. Warrior was suing WWE for things, just the rights to his name and this and that. And so during that trial and during that whole run, Vince was like, I'm going to make a DVD and we're going to call it The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. And we're going to put out this DVD that shits on him, knowing that the people that kind of missed the Warrior and remember the Warrior from the early 90s and late 80s that would buy that DVD, but then it's just fucking, he shits on them. And he has all these people like Hulk, Bobby Heenan, Gene Okerlund, Eric Bischoff, anybody else you could think of just shitting on the Warrior. It was a complete hit job. And I'll defend the Warrior on that. And he did it because he was in the middle of a trial. The Warrior was suing. The Warrior ended up changing his name legally from Jim Hellwig to The Warrior. The Warrior's legal name, ladies and gentlemen, was The Warrior. Because he wanted to be able to keep some of those rights and appear in public speaking and all that stuff as The Warrior. So he didn't want to lose that right to do that.
Yeah. And then, obviously they get a nice kiss and makeup because they want to get Warrior into the Hall of Fame. They want a main event as a Hall of Fame.
The video game, right?
I think that was kind of the push, right?
Legends deal.
He debuted that video game and he was just going nuts on the commercial and everybody loved it. And they that's where they kind of started talking again, and I think they kissed and made up. And you start to realize, okay, we'll put Warrior on a Legends contract. We'll do all this stuff. We'll get him to help people in the back. And I think Warrior was probably, changing his spots a little bit. He might have reverted back. We don't really know because unfortunately, he gets into the Hall of Fame. He has a great speech. Jess and I were talking about this earlier. We're talking 2 days later. He rolls into the Raw arena, wherever it was. And he doesn't look good, in my opinion.
No, you could tell something was wrong already.
There was something wrong.
Breathing heavy, and he looked winded.
Chalk it up to wrestling, his hips going bad. He did tons of steroids and growth hormones. I just thought he was getting old.
Yeah, but I mean, I personally believe, and I could be playing it off in my head like it's bigger than it is. But from Saturday to Monday, he looked way better on Saturday. Just his face, his expressions,
he looked really winded on Raw. Like you could tell.
He didn't run down or anything. He struggled. And then all of a sudden, it is on a personal note. We're chatting on, I can't remember if it was social media, Facebook, or just text. And all of a sudden, it was actually Cuz. He's like, "Dude, Warrior died," and I'm like, "Shut the fuck up."
It was Tuesday morning. It was the night after Raw.
Exactly.
And him and his wife, they got up in their hotel room. They had breakfast. They did whatever. They were actually walking out to their rental car.
Yeah.
And he collapsed. He collapsed when he was walking to his rental car.
And he grabbed his heart and went down.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing where Cuz sends that out. I can't remember his text or social media, and I was like, "Get the fuck out of here!"
That was WrestleMania 30, right? What year was that?
Yeah, WrestleMania 30, New Orleans.
Yeah. And literally, in Cuz like, "No, I'm serious." I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like he's like, "I think he had a heart attack," and a lot of us, I think, were where we're like, wow, after all that nostalgia and all that great speech at Raw and all that. It's nice when you see the old guys make up. Like Bret Hart was the same way.
Oh yeah,
when
for sure.
Made up, and you're like, oh, he's back, and he's working with them again. You're gonna see him back on DVDs, and you'll see, you saw him at the Hall of Fame this year, which it was cool. It's nice to see that stuff again. So it was a good feel good moment, and then it totally just turns you this total 180 where he collapses and dies literally 3 days after the Hall of Fame speech.
Well then, you shut up, Warrior, and let me do the talking. No WWE talent becomes a legend on their own. Every man's heart one day beats its final beat. His lungs breathe their final breath. And if what that man did in his life makes the blood pulse through the body of others, it makes them believe deeper in something than larger than life, then his essence, his spirit will be immortalized by the storytellers, by the loyalty, by the memory of those who honor him and make the running the man did live forever. You are the legend makers of Ultimate Warrior. In the back, I see many potential legends, some of them with warrior spirits, and you will do the same for them. You will decide if they lived with a passion and intensity, so much so that you will tell your stories and you will make them legends as well. I am Ultimate Warrior. You are the Ultimate Warrior fans. And the spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
The Ultimate Warrior!
I don't know if it's a combination of both. When you get older in life, you always hear the stories about, like when you get older, you cry at commercials, for no reason. And everybody goes through changes, when you get older, you go through midlife and shit like that. And especially when you have kids, your view on life and politics and everything is so different before you have kids. And then after you have kids, your life changes. You kind of view things from their eyes. You kind of realize that you have these fragile little things that are coming up and now things that I didn't care about before, or I didn't have opinion on before, I'm super opinionated about at this point. And I don't know if it was me getting older at that point, because Warrior passed away before I had my kids, but seeing him come back and give his Hall of Fame speech and get in the Hall of Fame, and then he died right after. I mean, literally like 48 hours after.
Yep.
What an odd thing. And I remember as a fan, I can only speak to you as Jess, the little blonde-headed kid that turned on Hulk and Bundy back in the day, and I'm talking as that guy. When I saw that and when, the way he passed and all that stuff, I thought, obviously it's shocking and unfortunate that he passed, and he left behind his wife and 2 daughters. And I just think that what an ending. If you're going to end, you end on this weekend where he was brought back in, and all these young guys, I'm sure, approached him backstage and told him how much he meant to them. And, I remember you as a kid and all that stuff, and you beat Hogan and all this stuff. And I'm sure so many of the young guys that were there at WrestleMania 30, approached him. So he got to feel all that. And in front of his wife and his daughters, they got to see these guys come up to him, these grown men. Oh, I loved you, man. I loved you. He married his wife and he had his daughters way after his wrestling career.
Yes.
And so they got to see that. They got to see this huge production. He's in the fucking Saints, dome, the Superdome, brother, and you got to be in there in front of fucking 70,000 people, and they got to see him, the night before in front of like probably 15,000 people in the Hall of Fame building, and they got to. I mean, what a big deal, right? Like you don't really know. You knew your father was famous, but you weren't alive to see it if you're his daughters, and you didn't know him when you were his wife at the time, and to see all that. I mean, what a way to, if you're gonna go. God, like what a way to go. And then you get to go out to Raw and put your little, the mask on that they were selling because he wasn't going to paint his face. He put the mask on and did a promo in the Warrior's voice and all that stuff. And then he passes and that's awful. But at the same time, like, God, like if you're going to go, I don't know of any better way to go after a company that shit on you for a while. And I'm not saying it's justified or not justified. They had a lot of, intense. It's a business, right? It's a living, breathing monster, this wrestling business. And WWF in particular, WWE, whatever you want to say, in particular, is a living, breathing monster. And it's gone public and all this stuff. And, so many things have passed since the Warriors' time and, legal proceedings and everything. And it's like they make up and he comes back and he gets to say he ended up saying goodbye on Raw. And when you listen to the speech, it was a goodbye speech. But he didn't know he was going to die, right? Maybe he did. Not as in like, I know I'm going to die tomorrow. But you know what I mean? Like sometimes they say people know. So when he went out there, and I'm sure Vince just said, go out there, Warrior, and cut whatever promo you want to cut. Talk from your heart. And I'm sure he did. And I'm sure he went out there and that was in his heart at the time. Maybe his soul and his body knew he was dying. And that was it. And he got to say goodbye. And he got to say his wife and his kids got to see all those people say hi to him and you meant so much to me. And how amazing is that, And he got to say that and then he passed. So if you're going to pass, I don't know, man. Is that the best way? Maybe it is.
Maybe for him. Yeah. It's it's hard to say. I mean, I always saw it as incredibly tragic, but in that light.
No, and I agree with that statement.
Yeah, at least to your point, at least he got to see that for all it was worth, and got to see that he had impact, and maybe it would have changed him. I don't know. I guess that's what I was looking to see. Would it have changed him? Would it have made him into somebody better, where he could have helped people with their gimmick? Obviously, he couldn't help with ring work. We get that.
Well, they signed him to a Legends contract.
Yeah, they were going to do that. Yeah. But would he have held up to it? I was hoping that we'd see that.
Maybe.
I think so.
We'll never know. We'll never know.
I think so. I think and the guy, and again, I'm speaking as the blonde haired kid that turned on wrestling and fell in love with it. I was always against the Warriors so much, and I think when I saw that, even before he died, I remember watching his Hall of Fame speech, going, you know what? It doesn't really matter what happened, does it? The fact is that you're here and you're saying goodbye, or not goodbye, but he was saying goodbye to his legacy in the sense of like, I've been gone for so long and so much shit's been talked about me, but I'm going to come out here and I'm just going to say, like, I live my life this way. Nobody could tell me different. And, I think maybe he was a little off, I think he was a little different level of thinking than the rest of us.
I'm kind of retarded.
No, but no, I just think that was a fitting ending. It was so amazing to watch that speech. And then when he passed, I was like, God, on Raw, he said goodbye. Isn't that weird?
That was insane. Yeah.
He said goodbye and he didn't know he was going to say goodbye forever.
Sure.
And it was just so weird. So before we get into the overrated shit, like as a fan, I saw him on the Hall of Fame speech and I thought it was a great speech. And I thought that he got to say whatever he wanted to. And he took the high road. And I think he said goodbye to the Warrior character, even though his name was the Warrior. It's a whole different thing. Mm-hmm. But he got to do it in front of his wife and daughter. And in the long run, let's be honest, I know it sounds corny and maybe it's because I'm 42 and I have kids, but that's all that matters.
Sure. Good stuff. Yeah, and that is the wrap up on the legacy of the Ultimate Warrior. As always, guys, you can reach us via Instagram at O.W.P 2019, SoundCloud at Our Wrestling Podcast, YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, or like we always talk about, download the app WrestlePost at no charge to you on Apple or Android, and join us with other great podcasts of the day. That's us. That's the O.W.P signing off, guys. Peace.
Hey everybody, this is Cuz with Our Wrestling Podcast. We did mention we were going to get into an overrated segment on the Warrior, but we decided to hold that off because it became its own segment. It's about a 30-minute segment or so, but we decided to save that for a later episode. So, like we mentioned, check us out on YouTube, Our Wrestling Channel, where you can listen to all of our episodes that we've had so far. This will be episode number 7, so go ahead and listen to episodes 1 through 6, and you can also find us on SoundCloud at Our Wrestling Podcast, where we have made those episodes available for download, and follow us on Instagram, O.W.P 2019. Until next time, stick around.
To speak your voice, you fought. I saw you fight over the years. I saw you fight back at all the anonymous ones who put forward all the lies and the mischaracterizations. They tried to reprogram your minds, rewrite history about a wonderful, exciting, fun memory of the Ultimate Warrior. And you fought back, and I'm here tonight because of you.